Voltron is one of those classic animations.
Yes.
And you know, whenever you're stepping into this type of opportunity, how did you feel when you got it?
When I got the call from Tracy and she explained to me what the property was and would I be interested in writing it, I jumped at the chance. You know, it's like one of those things from my childhood. You know, comics, cartoons, and video games pretty much shaped my entire career path. Voltron is a huge, like, iconic thing from my youth. So yeah, absolutely, I was all over it.
So you know, whenever there's a reboot of an incredible animation and cartoon, there sometimes is expectations.
Yeah.
What were some of your expectations when starting to write it?
You know, anytime you hear that they're going to like update stuff and change the way it looks, there's going to be some section of the fans that are going to be like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. It's not what I remember. But definitely, like the new stuff is great, and all the old fans should enjoy it.
Yeah. Is there anything that is a little bit updated?
Oh, sure. All the lines are updated. There's a whole new cast of cadets that are going to be the future of the Voltron Force. So yeah, there's a lot of new stuff.
What were some of the things that you didn't expect while this was all being developed?
Definitely the way that Voltron can configure now. Like they throw a lot of cool things in like that you didn't expect, but you always ask those questions as a fan of the show, and now they're actually showing you like different ways Voltron can form and stuff like that.
What's your favorite lion?
I like the black lion.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody likes the black lion, but I like the black lion.
So, how did you make this?
I wanted to thrill my nieces and nephews, so I started working on it. It took about 10 months to make.
And you know, it's very intricate. And
laundry detergent containers, Gatorade bottles, you name it, I used it.
And is there anything? Did you add any special flavor of your own personality to your costume?
A lot of spray paint.
A lot of spray paint.
13 cans.
13 cans. Wow.
He's actually got a book here of
how I made it.
all the things that he used to make it.
I used my neighbor's golf bag to make the gun cannon.
And stuff like that.
Wow. And so, what have you been saying about your final product?
What have people been saying about it? A lot of people say awesome to me a lot.
It is. It is. Do you actually like the Transformers? Are you a fan?
My favorite is Iron High, but yes, I'm a big fan.
Hi, I came out to Comic-Con because it's my second one, and don't know what I've been waiting for all my life, but we're also promoting a Star Trek fan film project, StarTrekSutherland.com, so check us out. It's a lot of fun.
For people who love comics, this is the ultimate experience. They get to become their own comic. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Well, our company is ID Comics, and we've been producing for 2 years comic books with actual real actors in them. So what happens is that through Photoshop and new digital media out there, that we're able to make these comic books as realistic as possible. And we've got 3 titles: Org, Experiment 692, and Project Chrysalis. And if you read those titles and visit our website, you can see lots of interaction with the real movie footage and the actual comic books as you're reading them.
Good afternoon, here at Comic-Con. Excellent. Come every year. This is actually a second time actually, but it's always overwhelming.
And what inspired you to dress up like this?
Actually, 2 things. One, I'm a magician and this is what I use. And then Halloween actually. I built it 2 years ago, so people keep on liking it.
Yeah.
How have comic books evolved? Well, comic books have turned from shit to shine over. When I got into comic books were basically toilet paper. America had attacked communists, and with a certain amount of leftover energy, America attacked comic books. Congress had hearings on comic books, whether or not they were bad for kids. And they said, yes, they were. So comic books wrote this thing called the Comics Code, and as a way of defending themselves. And so they followed the Comics Code. People suddenly realized, I guess over maybe 10 years, that comic books were positive, aggressively positive, good for the culture, good for kids, good for adults, good for people, and they were, oh, guess what, literature. And suddenly it dawned on the humans of America, just as it was apparent to comic books were an art form. Maybe because the French told us it was an art form. I don't know. And we're starting to realize that. And if you spin your camera around to the right, you're going to see the result of that realization. Go ahead, spin it around. Spin that camera around, boy. Spin it around. Take a look. What's going on here? That's the Shinola. What I started with was the shit. And that's the difference.
And you've been in the business for a number of years. What are you most proud of?
And I turned the business from shit to Shinola. What else? Who do you think it happened all by itself?
Yeah.
Well, everybody cooperated, but somebody had to lead the charge. That was me.
An artist has various ways to bring their vision to the forefront. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the business.
Well, kind of an interesting story actually. I went to the Kubert School for a year, and at the end of the year, a lot of people were telling me that I was ready to get professional work, and I wasn't totally convinced, but I decided to leave the school mainly because I didn't want to take out a bunch of loans. My parents paid for the first year, but they wouldn't pay for any more. So I left the school, and then that summer I ended up trying out for an online contest. It was called Comic Book Idol. It was done by comicbookresources.com, and basically they picked like 10 people, 10 finalists out of like, I don't know, 300 entries or something, and I was one of the 10 that was picked, and so I was really excited about that. And basically, you know, it's basically a ripoff of American Idol the way they did it. So there would be like assignments each weekend, and we'd do them, and then people would vote, and whoever got the least amount of votes was eliminated. So I got through a few weeks there, and then like during the contest, actually Aspen Comics, they contacted me and asked me if I wanted to submit some work to them, and so I was like, oh, do I finish the contest or do I like just leave and try to do the Aspen thing? But you know, I did the next assignment, and then I got eliminated that week, so it kind of worked out. So I immediately submitted stuff to Aspen, and they hired me sort of in a intern. I don't know. I wasn't really an intern because they said I was going to be an like internship type thing, but I pretty much just started drawing pages almost as soon as I got here. So I moved to LA, you know. Yeah, and that's when I started my career.
What's your favorite comic to draw?
Well, as far as like characters,
yeah.
I'd like to draw Wolverine. Wolverine would be fun, or maybe Batman. I don't know. Like those two are probably like Wolverine at Marvel and Batman at DC. I would say.
What are some of your inspirations?
Man, I have so many artists that I look at, so many guys that have inspired me over the years, and it's changed throughout my career. Like when I was younger, when I was first getting interested in comics, it was right around the time when you know, Image was sort of in its heyday. You know, you had Mark Silvestri like doing his thing on, you know, whatever. He did Cyberforce and like The Darkness, but then I think, you know, I was really into that sort of style, like the Silvestri, Jim Lee type styles for a little while, like Dale Keown. And then when Gen 13 came out, that was sort of like a formative moment for me, like because J. Scott Campbell was pretty much the first guy that I saw doing the type of things that he does, which is like, you know, animated facial expressions and just more like bouncy line quality and more lighthearted. And so that sort of pushed me in that direction. I was like, oh man, this is really cool. Like I like the facial expressions and stuff. But now, like, I mean, those guys are still influences on me, but those aren't people necessarily that I look at like for inspiration. Now it's more like a bunch of, you know, old school illustrators, people like Franklin Booth, J.C. Leyendecker. You know, I love there's a Russian
bunch of illustrators. Nikolai Fetchin was the guy I was trying to think of. I love James Jean is fantastic. I don't know. Most of the guys that I look at now are more like illustrative. I like Eduardo Rizzo, 100 Bullets. So it really, I try to have a diverse set of influences, so I don't draw too much from any one influence, and my stuff just sort of looks like it looks, I hope it looks unique because it combines so many different aspects of different artists that I like.
Whenever you're trying to bring your art to the forefront, it's sometimes a difficult task, and you've done some interesting things over the last year with bringing your comic to the forefront. Tell us a little bit about your comic and your journey.
Wow, that's a big question. Well, I've loved comics since I was 23. That's when I started reading them. I was in Vancouver at the time. I walked past a comic book shop, and as a joke, I was going to buy a present of a blow-up doll of Wolverine. And the woman there heard I was English, started talking to me about people I didn't have a clue about, like Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman. And she said, "But you've read Watchmen, right?" I said, "No." Stay here. She ran, she got the book, forced it upon me and said, "Buy this." And the sheer passion she had, I bought it. It felt a little stupid walking out, but I just shelled $30 for something I didn't know about. But that's changed my life. Because I always thought comics were for kids. And I realized that it's just a medium, like films are a medium. You have action films, romance films, we have decent films that make you think, and comics can do the same. So I've loved comics since then. I'm actually a management consultant, and I was posted for a project in Qatar in the Middle East. And I didn't know anyone there. In my free time, I thought I'd try and do something with comics, so I started writing. That was a year ago. And now I've got 3 books out, and desperately trying to plug things and speaking to random journalists.
So tell us a little bit about your comic.
My comic? Well, I've actually got 2. This one is called Twisted Dark. There's 2 volumes out so far. This is a series of short stories that are all connected in some way. They're all dark in nature and they'll normally have a twist in them. Ain't It Cool News said it was the best self-published book they've ever read. The stories are all connected, and the reader has to work to see how they're connected. Some are an obvious sequel to another, or some it's obvious daughter of another character. All over the series of 5 volumes, each character will interact with each other, and you have to figure out how they'll connect.
And how do you actually come up with your ideas?
I'm a very sick man. I just start with things I find interesting. I read articles in the news, or something interests me, and I say, what if? I take it a little bit further.
And how long does it take for you actually to put your comic together?
Well, in less than a year I put together 2 volumes of this and the first volume of this. I actually write quite quickly. It's not too difficult for me. For the short stories, ongoing series is a lot tougher because I have to make sure all the characters' moves are logical and it all fits together in the overriding story. So this one is about a man who starts seeing how things die. And so he first starts off with an animal, then it escalates to humans. Eventually, every living thing he sees how it's going to die. And he gets almost suicidal because he hates it. And he goes to commit suicide, and then something happens, and that's when the story starts.
What are you doing besides going to Comic-Con to try to get it to...
Well, I'm sending it to as many reviewers as I can. I'm giving it to famous people in the industry, trying to publicize it on blogs and things like that. Beyond that, it's a little difficult because unless you... My main drive was to actually create something first. So I have books that I can send to big publishers so they can have a look at something I've done and see what they think about it.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see the industry? Is it difficult to get into?
Extremely difficult to get into. People won't even accept submissions. I mean, the reviews are fantastic for this so far. Truthfully, they actually are. But still, some publishing houses won't even accept it, which goes straight in the slush pile. So I think I'm going to have to end up self-publishing until it gets enough.
And where can people learn more about your work?
Hopefully on this
broadcast.
Right. But failing that, neilgibsoncomics.com. I'm revamping it next month. It's a website. But I should be. If you use Google Twisted Dark on the internet, Gibson, you'll find lots of reviews and stories, free stories.
As you can see, Comic-Con is truly a